What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show, and I'm quite certain you can tell by the way that I'm dressed, we're going to be talking about prison food in this video. There's a lot of things going on right now in the news in relation to the food services that are operating inside of prison, and we're going to address that here today, and I have to assure you, everything that you're about to hear is absolutely 100% insane. I also want to give a special shout out to Snerd Guy, who tweeted me this, first making me aware of this story and also this major problem that's taking place with this prison food service contracting company. And you know, when you hear about all of the problems that this one particular prison food service company is having, it's gonna really make you wonder, like, how in the hell is this company still operating inside of the prisons? But this first story that I ran across that just broke yesterday, November the 6th, is only one of many problems that this particular prison food service company has been having. And this story goes on to say more problems for state's prison food contractor. Maggots found in chow served to inmates. This company better feel pretty fortunate that a full-blown riot did not break out once prisoners who were going to the chow hall found maggots in their food. Because I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, had a riot broke out for this, of course all of the prisoners would have gotten in trouble for this. But best believe, when they actually got down to the root of what actually caused a riot and found that it was maggots that were being served to these prisoners in their chow hall food, this company right here probably wouldn't be doing too much more serving any food to the prisoners. In Lansing, Michigan, officials found maggots in food in 3 separate incidents at a Jackson area state prison this summer, countering expectations that a change in contractors marked a significant reversal in the state's prison food woes. Obviously, Michigan is no stranger to having prison food problems stemming from whichever contractors they've hired to prepare and serve prisoners their meals. Now, real quick, before we go any further, let me just give you a little insight as to what a food service contractor does inside of a jail or a prison. They're not only responsible for preparing and serving meals to the prisoners, but they also prepare and serve meals to the staff as well. And in some cases, these companies are even responsible for the commissary at those facilities. Now, you know, it's reading this last part that I just read to you that reminds me of something that I went through personally, similar to all of this. Countering expectations that a change in contractors marked a significant reversal in the state's prison food woes. And this absolutely reminds me of when I was in the jail awaiting my transfer to prison, in this jail where I would serve over 2 years dealing with my case, going to trial, and then waiting to be transferred. And it was while I was at this jail that they did something similar. They changed the food service contractor that they had at this jail when I first arrived. And let me tell you something, when they did that, I mean, prior to them doing this, we were actually getting fed not so bad. But after they made this change, oh my God, it was an absolute drastic difference. I mean, the food went from being relatively not so horribly bad to absolutely bottom of the barrel, the worst type of jail food I had ever eaten in my life. In fact, we were getting beans almost every single meal, every single day. And let me tell you something, eating beans twice a day, 7 days a week for however long you're in that facility, you're gonna get mighty sick of some damn beans. Hey, what we having for lunch? Man, you know what we having for lunch. We having the same thing that we had for dinner last night, lunch yesterday, dinner the day before, lunch the day before, beans. Yeah. Probably should have known that. We've been eating beans every day, twice a day for the last 6 months now. And by the way, when this jail did make this change to this new food service provider, you better bet prisoners were not happy about this at all. Prisoners were taking their trays from the trustees, serving them their trays through that little chuck hole in their cell, and throwing that tray right back out into the day room. Beans everywhere. Dudes were going on hunger strikes. I mean, this almost started a complete uprising inside of the jail. But back to Michigan, where it says that the discoveries at the G. Robert Cotton Correctional Facility came amid ongoing complaints and concerns about lack of sanitation, insufficient staff training, and food shortages involving Michigan's prison food contractor. It certainly sounds like the prisoners were complaining about all sorts of things in relation to the food being served to them with this new food service contractor. And when prison officials investigated into these complaints, they probably found a hell of a lot more than they had bargained for. The records also show that officials at Cotton Correctional Facility found crunchy dirt in served potatoes and also mold in apple crisp and pancakes. Let me tell you something. Want to know how to ruin a prisoner's day first thing in the morning? Serve them some moldy apple crisp. You know, cereal is a major commodity inside of prison. It's something that guys absolutely love. Anytime they would ever be serving cereal for breakfast, which was on very few occasions, you can bet old Joe was inside that chow hall talking about 2 soups for your apple crisp, 2 soups. Make sure you ain't got no mold. Don't be bringing me that if it's got mold on it. Cereal might actually be one of the best things that they serve you from the chow hall. Something that a lot of prisoners will look forward to. And imagine their disappointment when they go to take a big old spoonful of that apple crisp. I can imagine some prisoners might actually be ready for war after that. And oh look, here's a little proof of just that. They also showed that one prisoner was placed in segregation after inciting a riot over unhappiness with the food service. Other prisoners stayed away from the chow hall at the end of August as a form of protest. I mean, what's the point of going to the chow hall anyways if all you're gonna be getting is crunchy dirt potatoes and moldy apple crisp and pancakes? Not to mention some maggots being found crawling around on your tray. I mean, not a lot of options there. You're either gonna starve or you're probably gonna eat some bugs. And if serving dirt, mold, and maggots wasn't enough, well, this food service provider has also been running out of food and making substitutions in the middle of serving meals. And though that may not sound like that big of a deal, hey, we ran out of something, let's just go ahead and substitute it with something else. Let me go ahead and tell you how this can pose huge problems. You remember how we were talking about the cereal and how that could be something that prisoners look forward to? Well, let's just use that for an example and say it's breakfast time and they're supposed to be serving cereal. Prisoners go into this chow hall expecting and looking forward to this cereal, but when they get up to the window to get their tray or when they get down the line and receive whatever food they're being served and have seen that they've ran out of apple crisp and have instead been served in replacement of that cereal, some watered down, disgusting prison oatmeal. And I gotta tell you, over the course of all of the time that I served locked up, I ain't meet very many prisoners who enjoyed some chow hall oatmeal. Especially when you're being served that in replacement of something that you were looking forward to. That apple crisp, I am telling you, that's a hot commodity inside prison. Why I got this watered down oatmeal right here? Why this man right here got apple crisp? Why ain't I getting no apple crisp? I don't want this watered down oatmeal right here. And at that point, you better be ready to trade in your chef's hat for some riot gear because it's probably about to go down. And now here's some fun facts for you. This Trinity food service provider, this company that's been having all of these problems as of late, has been on the job in Michigan prisons for just a little more than 2 years. And in that short little time span, they have received more than $3.8 million in penalties for unauthorized food substitutions, inadequate staffing, and other contract violations. I'm quite sure having maggots being found in your food is a pretty big contract violation. Also during this 2-year time span, something that's going to absolutely blow your mind, but 176 of its employees received stop orders banning them from prison property for violations such as smuggling in drugs and other contraband or overfamiliarity with the prisoners. And as crazy as that sounds, like in 2 years they've had 176 employees get fired and banned from prison property because of the things that they've been doing. As crazy as that sounds, the other food service contractor they had prior to this Trinity company was a company called Aramark, and during their time, which was less than 2 years, they had 186 employees receive those stop orders banning them from the prison property. Now, there is a good argument that this story brings up, and that is that food issues have been linked to earlier issues of prison unrest since December of 2013. And it was in December of 2013 when Michigan replaced 370 Michigan food service workers with lower paid contract workers, a move the state says is currently saving taxpayers about $11 million a year. So it's obvious that when you cut corners and cut funding, you're definitely going to have some problems that arise from that. And some of them problems are like what happened on July 26th when an inmate approached an officer's desk pointing at his tray where there were 4 or 5 small worm-like bugs on that tray, still moving. When this happened, the serving line was shut down. A food service worker found a decayed banana underneath fresh bananas on the tray, which was believed to be the source of the bugs. Bananas and other food items were removed from the serving line. The serving line was wiped down and sterilized before the meal serving was to resume. 4 days earlier, a correctional officer reported that she was searching a part of the food service area when she found a bag of cheese. She picked up the bag of cheese and noticed that there were several maggots crawling on it. 3 weeks after the worms were found on the prisoner's food, coolers behind the serving line were pulled out and maggots were found on a piece of chicken. Now, real quick, just to throw this in there, what this sounds like to me, where they're talking about they found a bag of cheese, they found the chicken underneath the cooler. I mean, when you got guys who are working in the kitchen, and I was certainly no exception to this when I worked in the kitchen, it was get your hands on as much food as you could and store it wherever you could so that you could later go back to it like a little squirrel. Cheese! Because yeah, guys are hungry in prison and they're gonna steal food, hoard it, and store it anywhere that they can. So with that, there is the possibility that that's why those food items were where they were found at, with those maggots crawling all over them. And I'm guessing that prisoners were just unable to return to retrieve those stolen items. Now, in the wake of all of this transpiring, there's been some other things that have been taking place as well. Like a food service worker who was fired because he refused to serve rotten food to the prisoners. Steve Pine, age 48, had worked for the Trinity Food Service Group since 2016. He said that they had about 100 bags of rotten potatoes. You could smell them, he said. And they had black and green mold all over them. An officer on duty agreed the potatoes should be thrown out instead of being used to prepare meals for the next day. But a Trinity supervisor disagreed, Pine said. When Pine, in front of prisoners who worked in the kitchen preparing and serving meals, refused to order the inmates to pick through the potatoes and find the ones that weren't rotten, they told him that he was trying to start a riot. And they fired him. It says that Pine left on Saturday having lost his job, believing the potatoes were served to the prisoners on Sunday. But a department spokesperson says that none of the potatoes were ultimately served. After inspecting them, it only turned out that about a third of the potatoes needed to be thrown out. But because this employee spoke out in front of the prisoners, the prison knew they couldn't serve no potatoes the next day, because the entire prison was probably buzzing with the fact that, hey man, y'all never believe what happened in the kitchen, man. We're trying to get the food ready for tomorrow, and then this kitchen worker gonna say, man, we ain't serving these potatoes because they rotten. Even the food workers know the food rotten. They trying to serve us. They trying to kill us in here. And you can bet, had that prison served any type of potatoes that next day, there'd have been some problems. And it would almost seem that this prison kitchen worker who spoke up and also lost his job might not have done so in vain. Or how about this prisoner here by the name of Victor Stallworth, 56 years old, serving time for armed robbery, not even sure why that really matters, moved into segregation after Stallworth was overheard in a kitchen area saying, they ain't gonna change things around here until we tear this place up. Stallworth not only lost his job working as a prisoner inside of the kitchen, but he also went to the hole. And you know, it's mentioning him in particular that just brings up the point, like, as a prisoner who's having to deal with this, see this, even eat this food, I mean, how do you really go about trying to stop this? I'm not trying to say that starting a riot would be the right thing to do, but as a prisoner in this situation, I mean, there's really little to nothing that you can do. Because in a lot of cases, as a prisoner who's making a complaint, a lot of times those complaints aren't even taken seriously. Evident by this right here. On July 14, a Cotton correctional inmate claimed that he found a bug in his rice and beans, according to another report from a corrections officer. A sergeant inspecting the bug on the tray said that the bug was cold to touch, while on the other hand, the rice and beans were hot. It was determined that the bug was not in the rice and beans as previously claimed by the inmate. Let me just say something real quick. You mean to tell me that you're gonna touch a bug, a little bug, let's just say it's a maggot, let's say it's a fly, and you're gonna touch that bug and be like, oh, that bug is cold. Why that bug so cold? Where he been, in the freezer? And then you're gonna touch those rice and beans. That's hot. I need a piece of ice. Let me use that bug that I just touched that was so cold. You mean to tell me that while inspecting this food, using your years of detective work experience and special powers or whatever it is that you think that you have, you mean to tell me that while touching that bug is cold to the touch while that rice and beans is hot? That makes absolutely zero sense to me at all. And again, it's me mentioning this that just further proves that a lot of times when prisoners have complaints, they're not taken seriously at all. Hey, look, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about all of this. As always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day.